Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian Farmer. It's Choppy Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recap for Tuesday, March 25th. Risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purpose only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. Everything that we're going through is for information purpose only. Please read the full risk disclaimer right there. So in this video, what I will do today is cover the a little bit of the ups and the downs. I thought that there was a couple interesting places that were showing some strength today. There was also a couple places that were showing some weakness today. Overall, it was a very choppy day. To me, that's not that should not be a shock. I think after the big moves that were made on Monday, sometimes the market likes to digest those gains a little bit. Sometimes for a day, sometimes for a day or two, and then you start to see some moves out of those areas. But like I said, there were some bright spots today. I'm going to go through where I see, again, some strength in this market. Let's just start with the indices very quickly, just so that you can see always a starting point for me. Nice break over the 200-day. This is SPY. Nice break over the 200-day moving average yesterday on Monday, and a little bit of follow through up 0.2 of a percentage point. But like I said, very choppy. There was some end of day strength with help, which helps. It kind of feels like, we weren't getting too many strong closes a week, 2 weeks ago, and it just kind of feels like there's been a change, and seasonality kind of giving us some clues too, where the market is pretty strong this last week plus Monday of March, because that's it for March this week and on Monday. That's the S&P Qs now pressing into that 200-day moving average. They outperformed today. Not a bad day for the Qs. No, for the Qs, no complaints there. Up 0.6 of a percentage point. Very simply watch the 200-day moving average. We'll see if price can get above that. Here's where there was a little bit of weakness, which was small caps today, which were down 0.6 of a percentage point. Now they're still holding above that 20 and 5-day moving average, but it's an inside day. We're very close to an inside day, so no change. Here's where there was a little bit more damage. IWC micro caps. This was down big today, down 1.5%. And if I'm guessing what some of the areas were that brought this down, I'll go over the negative first. Biotech and healthcare, not so good. Look at the move down in XBI, down 1.9%. And I don't know what the story was there. I'm sure there's something that I'm probably missing. I'm not a specialist in healthcare, or I'm not like, it's not my it's not something that I specialize in. So I know that they were talking politically about possibly ending the commercials on TV for drugs. I heard that yesterday. I'm not sure if that had an effect today, but you could see. So this is XBI, equally weighted biotech. Again, this just hasn't been a place to really concentrate this year, and for a while now. It just has been very difficult. Here's also XLV. This is the healthcare ETF. Maybe putting in a head and shoulders here. Here's your excuse me, left shoulder, head, and possibly a right shoulder, but slanted there with the big move down. This is another group that has been very difficult to try to even have some positions in. AbbVie was a name that's been showing some strength for a while. Look at what happened to AbbVie today, down 3.7%. A lot of put activity in AbbVie today, so it brought that to my attention. Also, Merck was another one that got slammed down. Again, like I would have to think maybe that has to do with that, unless there was something drug specific, but very weak group. So let's talk about a couple strong areas. Now, I think everybody's starting to talk a little bit about the cyber stocks. I've been a fan of this group. It's been a little rough going, but for the overall group, and this is the CIBR ETF, I would watch 66.75, and I'll just go through a couple charts. And I've been in, I've had an overweight position in this group for a bit. Like I said, it's been a little bit tough going over the last month, but I do like a couple names that I mentioned yesterday. RBRK had some follow through today, cleared this sideways consolidation here. Had a heck of a day yesterday. I capitalized on that yesterday, and today I took a target in that. Another name that I've liked is Okta, which didn't do much today. That was not where the performance was for today. But Palo Alto, I would watch this name tomorrow. That's a nice break that should trigger the bullish 80% rule. That's your first real move back into the value area. So that's a nice move there. CrowdStrike got an upgrade today. This isn't really a name for me because it did not have good earnings. So I tend to stick with the names in the group that had stronger earnings. They tend to outperform. Net is another one that got a broker upgrade this morning, but you could see not that big of a move and a bit of a rejection there at resistance, which is the bottom of the value area. Another name that I've been long for a while. You don't hear me talk about it too much because it doesn't move that much. It's kind of just doing its thing. I've been long this name. I feel like forever. I think it's been about 3 weeks that I've been long this thing. Even in here, I stayed by it. I think I even added into a little bit of weakness in here. So it's a very slow mover, checkpoint software again, and it tends to underperform a little bit when you have a really like risk on type day because it's a more of like a low volatility type name in tech. But overall, I'm not going to mess with it because the trajectory is up. Another one that I see hear people talking about is Zscaler. That also, if you go back a couple of weeks ago, just kind of got lucky with the timing, but had a good, strong earnings report. There's another name too. Is it VRNS? No, maybe it's another name that I'm thinking. But regardless, cyber groups that's showing some strength in tech. I talked about this too in the weekend video. I talked about the internet group. Right. It doesn't really get there because there is an internet ETF. It's FDN. So Frank, David, Nancy. And this has actually made a nice move too. I was talking about how this held in here a little bit better than overall tech and a nice move the last couple days. But yeah, I was talking about this in Sunday's video how there's been some relative strength there in tech. Okay, so what outside of tech is doing well? Well, I've talked a lot about energy. I'm just a little bit worried that energy is going to stall out here. Why? Because it does this on the top of the range, and you can see the example. So it's made a nice run from the lows, $84 to 93. And I am holding a couple names in here. You've heard me talk a lot about CVX. Not the best candle for the day. It's kind of a toppy looking candle, but it didn't break back below the 5 period moving average. I was talking about this earlier. So holding in there. LNG has another name that's worked for me. Again, kind of an inside looking candle. EXE is also, this is a name I added a position today. Again, I feel a little bit like risky doing this because the overall group is, while one of the best performers out there and has been showing relative strength over the last couple of weeks, it's a little bit stretched to the upside and the top of that range. But I do like the neat little consolidation here, and for now I'll stay with it as long as it's above the 5-day moving average. Okay, what else? I haven't talked too much about this space. Maybe I have, maybe I haven't. I'm trying to remember, but I don't think I have that much. Here's a sector that's breaking out to new highs. We don't have that many groups that are doing that. I know it's not the most exciting. Everybody wants to hear about AI stocks or your names that were favored, back in the beginning of the year. But I think those names did very well yesterday. I think it will be tough to see if those, continue to do really well. I think that you have to be for now. And again, I could be wrong, but what I'm trying to do is be picky and choosy in high growth. So here's aerospace and defense breaking out. I don't hear too many people talking about it. Again, it's not as exciting as some of the other areas in the market, but you've got the one name that is growthy is HWM, which is doing very nice. That's been a nice breakout. We talked about how methodical the 50-day moving average is here, held here, went a little bit below the 50-day moving average, but once it retakes it, it's in good shape. Same thing here. Here it didn't break below the 50. A lot of consolidation here, move up, and again, a little bit, moved a little bit lower than that 50. So once it retakes it, is kind of your safe zone. And that's challenging new highs. But there's a bunch of different names in here. Woodward is a name. I know not a lot of people trade this name, but this is another aircraft part type company. GE has been acting very well. That actually broke out to new highs. Again, just quietly, was again never really showed that much weakness a couple weeks ago. It did sell off like everything else, but at new highs. So ITA is market cap weighted. NOC also made a nice move today. This is not a name that I've traded in a while, but above this recent pivot. There is an equally weighted ETF, which has a little bit more exposure to things like Rocket Lab in here too, which is also doing well above its 50-day moving average. All right, so that's again, this has been a story, this aerospace and defense. If you're a regular viewer of my videos, I've talked a lot about this group because it's anything that goes like this is trending like this and then comes back and gets to new highs. You're going to hear me talk a lot about it because I will just, I focus on names and groups that are doing very well rather than underperforming. What else? The financials. That's not the that's not the right chart for financials. But XLF coming back to the 50-day moving average. Again, you don't have very many sectors that are at or breaking above the 50-day moving average. So these are the first ones to kind of get going a little bit. And as I said a couple days ago, when you have a move down in just about everything, where almost everything has had a correction, it's interesting to see what groups start to take that back, come back first. And the financials were acting very well last week. I made mention last week that multiple times that we were trading in a range. The S&P was trading in a range all last week, but the financials actually got out of the range and have been moving up. JP Morgan had a good day today. Nice move here. I'm also seeing just still a lot of international banks doing very well. There is an international ETF. I don't really like this too much, but it's IXG. But again, gives you a sense of what's strong. I found, I was just going through some charts this morning. Here's the Argentina ETF, which has also made a nice little recovery here. It's going to have to get through this virgin point of control. But if you go through, there's a couple names that I found. Here's GGAL, which is again didn't close on the absolute highs, but there was another Argentina bank that I thought was very good. Here's BBAR, BBAR, Banco BBVA, Argentina. Again, trying to turn the corner here. I remain long Deutsche Bank. I'm trying to get this. We'll see if we can get up to these two VPOCs up here. That's what I'm targeting. But another nice day for Deutsche Bank, up about 2%. There's a bunch of. By the way, look at all the volume. Right, it tells you something. SAN has been another one that's been super strong. So again, not just U.S. banks, but all over the place. This group is doing very well. BCS was another name that I was watching. I decided to go into Deutsche Bank, but Barclays is also another bank that's doing well. Let's just look at UBS as well. UBS I've looked at a couple times, not as strong as the other ones. And another one that looked, let's see, HSBC, right? Another one that's been doing pretty well. Not as strong as the first two that I mentioned in Europe, but yeah. So that's where there's strength in this market. And then it's kind of take your pick. We know that copper has been doing very well. SCCO, yeah, continues to kind of grind higher here. It's back now above its 200-day moving average. FCX has just seen a mountain of call activity. Now testing has gotten all the way from here where we started to see the call activity, has made a really nice move right at that 200-day moving average. So copper names have acted well. Tesla made a nice rebound today. Tesla was doing the thing where it kind of was showing a little bit of weakness today, but obviously a lot of call activity in this name. And look at it go all the way up to 290 here in the after hours. So that really nice move from about 2 o'clock on here. Here was the initial move, like it was bid up a little bit pre-market, a little bit. Got smoked in the first like 20 minutes, but it just built all day long. So again, notice how there's pockets of strength and this takes back its 200-day moving average. First time it's back above its 200-day moving average since the beginning of March. So it's now above value for the year and now above the 200-day moving average. So again, small, areas that are showing some strength. Again, I don't think it's going to be an everything type market in for growth, but I think that you can definitely find some places where things might be doing a little bit better and where you can find some trades. I'll leave it there for tonight, guys. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.